Hello everyone, it's been a long time, nice to be back. This time I want to design a table for my nephew who's like 1 year old now, so a table that grows with him as he grows. And the main thing for that was to design and 3D print those connections that hold up the table surface and connect the legs. For that, as you can see on the screen, the final version is this one, but to get to this point we did a lot of testing and 3D printing and figuring out the most ideal shape, thickness of walls, and like how many walls, and infill, and so on. So that's what you can see in this section now. I used some kind of scrap wood to play around and test that. I've also designed some screws that kind of hold in the legs into the connection, which we'll look at a little later in this video. But here I'm testing out the first connection, which was way too weak. But it only took like an hour or so to print, so it was good first try. Here, because of test wood is super light, I think it's a Douglas fir or something, like super soft. The nails didn't hold. And the final piece is like oak and beech, which are extremely strong, and hardwoods. But you can see it breaks right at the connection, which is not ideal because I want my nephew to have a safe table and not break it. Here I'd like to try to select how many screws would hold in, so that was super strong. I was confident like with the screws connection into the wood that would be safe and strong. And a different version here, I tried more conical and added more thickness to it, but then it snapped off where it was thinner. Also, I didn't use many walls in this design, and the one in the middle, you can see here now, is kind of the settings in print I went with, because it's quite strong. I was like leaning really hard onto it. You can see like the wood itself is like really like broken already, but it didn't break, it just deformed a little, which I think is good, because if someone leans against it, sits on it, it wouldn't snap right away, but it kind of would deform, and then you would notice some kind of weakening in the structure, which is I think good. So that's kind of the settings I went for. I was super happy with that. I'm confident that the table would hold up. In this section now, you can see me like designing a table, which is straightforward. I'm just using some textures to visualize it, to keep me interested in the process, and like also like kind of visual right away how it might look in the end. Some basic setups of textures in the scene. It's not like hyper realistic of what the wood's gonna look like, but it's not too far off. I'm constantly using like measured cubes to like just roughly block in where the shapes go, because like woodworking and 3D printing is not 100% accurate like you would need in metalworking and so on. I think Blender does a good job. I've had some good experience with that, and I've kind of developed a process of how I can get to pretty much high precision prints by using these kind of approximations of 1 centimeter cube, so whatever like the dimensions is that I need, and to turn out pretty good, like snug fits around everything that I'm designing so far. It takes some time. It obviously is not the ideal way. It's not the ideal way in terms of like we could do some CAD modeling and we have some more precise and procedural way of doing fillets and whatsoever, but it's pretty fast for me because I'm used to this process, and I developed this kind of approach for myself that kind of works, and it gets me pretty fast to where I want to go. Like I used a 10 by 10 kind of division, so my measurements were super easy to kind of control. In the end, before kind of boolean everything together, I got rid of the edge loops, which is no problem, just like deleting edge loops, because it's all rectangular shapes and like square shapes. It doesn't really mess up the geometry at all. added some chamfers to where the screw holes go. Didn't really matter at the end too much, but at that point I wanted to like just do it, because so maybe the screw doesn't mess up the print surface so much. But yeah, because metal compared to 3D print, there is no the 3D print, there's no chance of winning against metal, so it would just like go through it anyway. Finalizing up here the beveling and the kind of shape for the print, for sending it off to the printer, and adding some bevels so it's like round. No one gets their shirt ripped in half if they walk past it and get stuck. And yeah, that's the final version we went with. It's pretty sturdy. It looks okay. Here I'm just visualizing it, so you can just see how it will look like in the end once it's all done. That's the screws. Kind of just used the bolt factory and adjusted the screws to what I needed. Did some test prints there as well. Tried to figure it out, like the length, what works best. Here, because of the conical shape of the connection, the wood print connection, I thought maybe I do some weird stuff to the screws as well, which in the end I didn't go for, because like it's extra complicated that I don't need. So I did some changes on the structure itself, which wouldn't mess up too much, because I did like I think five wall thicknesses, so like 5 outer walls for the print, which is more than enough. I figured out with my tests, and so I went back to just normal screws without any angle onto them, which was way easier in the end. So here you can see the different screw types I did. So first one, that was came with a test print from my printer, and that one was the first one, wouldn't work. This one got stuck, like it was too tight, and that's the final version that actually did. That works pretty well. Just testing out in the wood as well, obviously just drilling a hole, pulling it through, and doing some testing as well, how strong it would be against shear forces. Obviously it's not like a super like accurate test, but for me I was like, yeah, that will do. Obviously did some nice time-lapsing and videos of the printing of the screw, which always nice if the printer just goes like straight up, and which you can see in a second here. Yeah, and then here I'm always started printing the main connection pieces, which took on this machine about 18 hours, which is long time, whereas compared on my FL-Sun Super Racer, 7 hours, I think 650 for the whole thing, which is about 10 by 10 and 10 centimeters high. So, and like a 30% infill and 5 walls. The FL-Sun prints way faster, has some accuracy problems sometimes, whereas like the Flash Forge I have does super accurate and super nice prints, but it takes a long time. In this section, we figured out that we need a proper jig to drill through the beech legs, like the beech wood legs. So I used that inner diameter of the connection to build like a jig that we can then use to drill through with our handheld drill. Which in my tests, I noticed it's not too hard to drill through the wood, but it's hard to get it like completely straight center through, which is a problem if you want to have the screws go through, because if the hole is just a little bit off, you won't get them through. So that's why I quickly modeled that, which was based off the inner diameter of the connection. So that's the same. Now I learned that it was pretty snug. So next time I build a jig, I'll just make it a little bit bigger, because there's no need to be like 100% tight around it, because we just needed to drill the hole. So that was a good learning. So jigs don't have to be 100% snug around an object, or probably any object, just like to get them in as accurate as you want, as needed, which is pretty, but not too much. At the end, this jig ripped apart a little bit because of it, but it did its job, got all the holes drilled. Yeah, that's the final 3D thing before sending off the printer. And there it is. In reality, just testing if the 8mm drill bit goes through, which it did, no problem. And went straight into the hole at the bottom. So that was also good, and that was a really helpful tool to have, which took 45 minutes to print on the speed racer. So that was good use of time and help down the road. Already selecting the wood, local hardware store, but they have some glued up wood already. It's not like, because we don't have the machinery to square everything and make it, so we just went to with what we have available to us. Got them to cut it down into the pieces we need, which is like about 49 centimeters of leg length, which is like what, 1.5 foot, 2 feet, something like that. And the oak table surface, which is glued up already and pretty decent quality. The connections plus the legs, and the first big major thing, and the only really major thing, was to drill the holes into the table legs, which is beech wood, which is super hard, and it heats up the drill bits quite a bit. And yeah, so that's where the jig came in, super handy, and it worked like a charm, pretty nicely. You can see how the drill bits is working hard to get through that beech wood, but it did its job. And it's all straight through the center, as we hoped and wished for. Just beveling some of the edges to just make sure the screws go in easily and don't get caught anywhere but it shouldn't. And then it was up to the fun bit, kind of assembling the legs with the connections and mounting the connections onto the table surface. The screws are mainly there to hold the legs in their place. They're not for like actual compression of the 3D print. They're just there, so if the connection loosens up a little bit because of movement, they don't fall out if you pick up the table. Yeah, the rest was just pre-drilling the oak table surface, which is super hard, so you want to pre-drill it so it doesn't splinter the wood. And we just wanted to be careful with the 3D print and metal, like screw metal connection. So we just went really slowly, but it's super strong. The table has been in use already, and it looks great. Super happy about it. Hopefully my nephew will be happy with that table as well, once he understands what a table is. For now it's just like smashing against it, which is also fun to look at. And here we have the final piece, and I'll be quiet now and let you enjoy those scenic images of the table in my living room.